In this project, we're going to add the Combat A music to our Wwise session. So first, we're going to create a new music work unit. So click on the interactive music hierarchy, create new work unit. Let's just name this music. All right, within this, we are going to create a music playlist container. We're going to call this Combat. Into our Combat music playlist, we're going to add this entire folder of music called Combat A. You can see we have alternate versions of tracks here. And eventually we're going to be alternating between these versions. So to do that, you can right-click and either say Import Audio and add the entire folder. Make sure you don't do files, we want the entire folder. Or you can simply drag that entire folder in, which is what I'm going to do. Dragging Combat A, and just confirm where this parent folder is going to be a music segment, and each file within it is going to come in as a music track. So we say import. So now if we click on Combat A, in the content section, you can see each WAV file represented here. And the music segment, you can see each track. See how it looks very, very DAW-ish at this point. So the first thing we want to do is set the tempo of our track. And we want to do that on the parent folder. The tempo of this tune is 138. So now if we go to our music playlist within the Combat playlist container, this is where we actually want to set looping for our music. So we're going to drag in Combat A, add it to this playlist, and over here for loop count, click that down arrow. We want to set that to infinite. So now looping is enabled, but we need to actually set the loop points. So go back and click on Combat A to the music segments. And you can see our end loop here is the red one. And if this is not showing up as bars and beats, you can right click and alternate. So I definitely want that in bars and beats. And we want it to snap to bars and beats as well. So we're going to drag that over to measure 9. So now we should have a looping segment for these 8 measures. So we're going to hit play. But before we hit play, just note that all these tracks are playing at the same time. And in the end, we're going to be alternating between these tracks. So it'll be more like the intent was originally. Basically, it's going to be too loud now. So just be careful with your volume settings. Maybe we'll just turn this a little bit down just temporarily, just to confirm that it loops. And if we have it on our Combat A object here, container, we're not going to hear the loop. It won't actually loop. So we want to make sure that Combat is selected while we're kind of previewing this loop. And actually, I'm going to come down to the transport control here and just pin it to Combat. So I know we're always looping, at least for now. Might change that later. So now that this is pinned, we can navigate around. So let's see how this loop works. All right, we have our looping intact. So now let's look at a few features of this window. So over here, we can either enlarge or decrease the horizontal view. And we can do the same with the vertical view. And just note that some of these features disappear depending on the size of the track. So if you're looking for volume or soloing or muting and you can't see them, potentially have to raise the size of the individual track. So now we can come in and actually we can solo tracks and hit play to hear just these individual tracks. And there's a master solo up here. So let's say you soloed something and you're in some other section. Instead of having to go hunt down those tracks you've soloed, you can just come up here and hit that master. And now soloing is turned off for everything. Same thing with muting. You can mute individual tracks, and there's a master unmute up there. And here's some automation that we have as options in this view. So you can either opt to see them or not. So we'll turn those off for now. So now we're going to take our arpeggio track and make a few variations of it. So the idea being we can rotate through multiple versions, and we'll still be the game will still be referencing the main WAV file. We won't be creating new WAV files. It'll just be creating new versions of that single WAV file. So the audio footprint will remain the same, even though we have different versions of this arpeggio track. So first we can go over and click on this, on the name down here on the track, and then hit copy. And down here, we're going to make a new track. So right click, make new track, call it Ambience 2. So now we can come in here, you say paste clips here. All right, so drag that over if it's not quite snug to the left side. Just worth noting, this is the start of the play of the playhead, and you can create an intro to the section. So just know if you're kind of clicking and grabbing up here, we don't actually want an intro for right now, so we'll leave that there. But we're going to use this playhead in a little bit, so we can move that out of the way. Another way you can copy and paste a track is come up here and click on the header, and then go down here. And the new tracks always go at the bottom, so we have to scroll down. So you can click on the Ambience 2 header and say paste tracks. It'll actually add this new track right below it. So that we can click on this header and rename it. We'll call it Ambience 3. So for the first ambience, we're going to leave it as is. For the second one, we are going to remove every other measure. So kind of ebbs and flows compared to the first version. So put the play cursor on the second measure. Don't get confused by the threes here. This is the third beat of the measure, of every measure. So this 2 is a little bigger than the 3. So we want the 2, the 4, the 6. Starting with 2. So put your playhead on your cursor on the 2, and then right click on the track that you want. And we can see that split on play cursor is S. So because this track is highlighted, you can see how this track is now split there. So we're going to keep doing the same thing. Go to 4. Actually, that's wrong. I'm going to do it for every measure. So hit S. Go to 4, hit S. 5, hit S. 6, hit S. 6, hit S. 7, hit S. 8, hit S. And we'll get rid of this tail part as well. And delete that. So now we can, let's see, we want to keep the first measure. So we're going to get rid of 2. You can control click on each of these. And then right click and say delete. So now we have every other measure playing. And so for the third variation, let's do the same here. We'll click S, then right click, say delete. So for this one, let's do some automation here. We have our high pass. So right in the middle, we're going to put a dot. And then we have a dot here already. So here the high pass will be fully engaged. And so we should hear the volume of, or the sound of the arpeggio kind of sweeping in and out as the high pass engages. All right, so now we have those 3 versions. Next thing we need to do is make a track that's going to rotate through those 3 versions. So if we go back up to the top to our main arpeggio, click on the header, right click. We currently have a normal track, so it just plays just as normal, like any track would in a DAW. So but now we want to select random step, which means each time this loop hits, it's going to randomly select a track. And which track is that, you say? Well, we need to add that. So now that it's random, we can say add subtrack. And so you can see that we have a blue header over here for each track, signifying that it's a subtrack. So each kind of play track has a different color. So you can kind of identify that way. So our random is blue. So we're going to go down here, and if it's close enough, you can drag it up. For these, I'm going to copy and paste. So copy, and I'm going to put the cursor back here. So now we can paste clips and just drag those back. I'm going to select all these, make sure they just get back in line with the bar beats. So same thing, go over here, add a header. We're going to add a new subtrack. And same with our ambience 3. We're going to copy that. And I don't want to delete these yet because I want to make sure my new tracks are kind of ready to go before I start deleting stuff. So right click, I'm going to right click right on the cursor, paste clips here. Just make sure that's in the right place. All right, so this actually looks pretty good. So now I think we're good. I'm going to go down here and select all these. And well, actually, I'll just go down here and delete the track. That track is gone. That track is gone. Okay, so now if we solo this and hit play, we'll hear a rotate through each version as the track loops. All right, that seems to be working as intended. And for any of these, especially for this one, if you want, you can tweak those fade ins for these measures. If you want to fade in a little bit more, instead of just kind of a harsh, kind of entry and exit, totally kind of dependent on your taste and what you're going for. So for these Fs, we can actually force a layer to play. So if we wanted to hear this, if we wanted to force this one to play, we can hit F just to, for testing, just to make sure that we're hearing what we think we're going to hear. All right, I'll turn the solo off. So we have our random here for these 3. And for playback, I actually want to create one more subtrack and just leave it blank. And so this will be, we'll have four tracks that it could choose from, and one of them will have nothing playing. So we're going to leave that as another variation. So you can see we have 2 bass tracks. So I'm going to do the same thing, make a random track and a subtrack, and add this bass so it'll rotate the through the 2 of them. And for bass, I'm not going to make an alternate silence one. That'll be the only one I don't do the silence for. So guitar, we have 3 tracks. I'll make a random for those and add a silence. Only 1 choir, so we'll have 1 track and 1 silence. Low brass, 1 track, 1 silence. Low choir, same. two staccatos, we'll have two tracks and a silence, and then we'll have two strings and a silence, and same with synths, two synths and a silence. So we're going to go through and do all those now. Same thing that we did up here. All right, I think I have that how I want it. Let me make these tracks a little smaller so I can kind of see everything looks good. Ambience is 3, bass is 2, guitar, ambience is 4, bass is 2, guitar is 4, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. Yeah, that looks good. One thing I'm going to do right now is we don't have a drum track yet. So our drum track is actually coming from this Combat AB rhythm. So we're actually going to just grab 3 of these and drag those in. Drag those into our Combat folder as music tracks. So I see those gets added at the bottom. And we're not going to alternate these because we want percussion playing through the entire time. So we won't add random tracks like we did above. So I'm going to turn off the high pass automation so I can see it. And so now we want to, these are 4 measures. And we have an A major phrase. So just like in a DAW, we can just loop these. So you can drag the corner down here and just drag it out. And you can see that you get a dotted line here as the loop point. So we have 3 tracks. We can do the same thing here. I'm going to select 2 of them at the same time, just drag them out. So now we have those 4 measures playing for all 8 measures, just looping. And so now when we play, we're still on our Combat transport. So we've done some work here, so now's a good time to save. So if we take another quick look, I think everything looks okay. And if we hit play on our Combat playlist, music playlist container, we should hear a different version every time we loop through this sequence. And I had actually turned down our volume earlier when we were playing everything at once. So let me bring that back up. So yeah, we were definitely hearing, a different version every time. It was a little out of, the mix was a little out of whack. I thought the guitars were maybe a little loud. I thought the drums were a little quiet, so I brought those up. So we could fix those on individual tracks as we go. So the last track type I want to just kind of demonstrate quickly is the sequence step. We can do this for the guitar. So instead of playing randomly through each track, it's going to play in order. So everything looks the same except for this turned green. And so now we're going to hear the same thing, but when we play through these guitar tracks, you're going to hear it play this one, then this one, then this one, This one will be very obvious because you can see, because this one has a very, kind of rhythmic pattern going. And then the third one's pretty obvious. It's more kind of a soaring track. And then the fourth one, the guitar will drop out. Yeah, so there you have it. A lot of variety going on there, and we have a way to take these 8 measures of music and really come up with a lot of different variations of it using all the various methods that we can kind of randomize elements to make it sound as fresh as possible every time without adding any new content. So, all right, I hope that all seemed pretty straight ahead.